Well, we catch up with Dan Auerbach, Black Keys and solo for the very first time. Mm-hmm. The solo album. And I couldn't help but notice you're about the same age when John Lennon and Paul McCartney both put out their first solo albums.
Really?
Yeah.
Weird. I didn't know that.
And Black Keys have been together around the same time as what the Beatles were together when Lennon and McCartney did their solo albums.
Yeah, we're pretty much like the same band. Just as good, you know.
Well, they're both racked under B in what used to be called a record store. Well, you know, getting the solo album together, Dan, I mean, you know, has this been sort of something that you've been working on for quite some time? I mean, I can't help but think with the title, Keep It Hid, that you might have been keeping it hidden for a while, and, you know, it was only November when we heard that there was such a record on the way.
I've always recorded, and I've never really had any time to put out a record. I've always been a bit too busy, so for the first time ever, I had this little window of opportunity, and decided to go for it. So that's why I put the record out now.
What about the difference between, say, one of your songs as a Black Keys song and one of your songs as a solo? You know, is there a discernible difference to you?
The biggest difference is that Patrick's not there. That's pretty much it. You know,
yeah.
I mean, it's the same idea. It's a song that I've written, and you know, it's all about the moment for me anyway. You know, all the Black Keys records are minimal takes, you know, like first, second takes with most songs. It's the same thing with my record, and it's just different people working with.
Because you're digging back to those very early influences, aren't you? And, you know, like, you know, we're talking about people, you know, the great blues artists such as Robert Johnson, for instance. You know, both as a Black Keys person and as, you know, a solo artist, you know, this is where I guess we track those influences back for the songs, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wasn't trying to sound different on this record, you know. I was just being myself, and same influences as they've always been. So yeah, I mean, they're definitely there.
So does this mean, you know, in doing a Black Keys show, you'll be incorporating some of these songs, you know, with Patrick? Or
No, not at all.
And what about in reverse, doing your own shows? Will you do
No,
Keys as well?
no, won't do any Black Keys songs on the solo tour. It'll be strictly my own thing. Yeah. And any covers that I feel like doing.
So I would imagine, you know, you go into the studio with Patrick, you make a Black Keys record, and, you know, there's two people to make the decisions. Suddenly, for the first time, you're making the decisions for yourself. Was that a bit of added pressure?
Yeah. Not really. I mean, I don't take myself too seriously, you know, and I'm not too much of a perfectionist, but whenever I worked with other musicians on the record, they had just as much say as I did. So I didn't like, you know, I wasn't overruling anyone's ideas. Well,
the Attack and Release album is, you know, still less than a year old. You know, how far into Attack and Release did this album start coming together?
Some of the songs were recorded before Attack and Release came out. And like I said, I've always recorded, so for the last 4 years I've accumulated tapes, and I've got songs just sitting on the shelf that I've just never used, you know?
Wow, so there could be a few more solo albums on the way there.
Possibly.
Let's talk a bit about your hometown, Akron, Ohio, home of also Devo. And you guys and Devo got to do a gig together late last year for Barack Obama.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. They hadn't played in Akron in 30 years. And the last time they played in Akron was this theater that we played in. And Chrissy Hynde played. And it was just a kind of amazing night. You know, felt very... it felt like it was something that was never really going to happen again. You know, I didn't get the feeling that they were ever going to come back to that theater. You know, it took something like Obama to make them want to come to Ohio and play in the first place. So it was really cool.
What about, you know, going out there and performing for a presidential candidate? You know, do you have to think harder about what you're going to perform and, you know, sort of censor yourselves along the way?
No, not really. I mean, it's an informal thing. They want you there just to have your name and to have you perform. It doesn't really matter too much, you know. And we're not a political band, so we didn't get up on the stage and preach about George Bush or anything like that. We just, you know, just represented Akron. We were from Akron, and we just were a band from Akron. That was it.
What about, you know, doing a benefit such as that? You know, the difference in the reaction to the crowd. Did you sort of, you know, could you feel it as a different show to, the traditional Black Keys?
Democrats are pretty loose, you know? So they danced the whole time. It was nice.
Yeah. So what'd you perform that night?
We did a half-hour set.
Yeah.
And it was sort of similar to our regular set. Mm-hmm. Same thing.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about family heritage. Is James Quinn? Quine, your cousin.
James Quine's my uncle.
Is your uncle?
That's my mom's brother.
Oh, okay. Now James played on your record.
James
correct?
played on my record, yeah.
Okay. Who else was involved with your record?
Well, I had just some friends that are local, a drummer named Bob Caesar, mm-hmm. and Jessica Lee Mayfield. She's a singer. She sang harmony on the song. And just, a couple other people from around town.
Yeah, okay. So Robert Quine,
mm-hmm.
Where does he fit into the family then?
He's a cousin. He's first. He's I guess my cousin once removed. He's James's first cousin.
Okay, right.
So they're about the same age.
So he's got quite a few accolades as a guitarist.
Yeah. He was he played on with Lou Reed a bunch, and he played on a lot of records. But I never really knew him like that. I was a little too young to know him. I think, a couple of years after I started playing guitar, I hung out with him in Akron once and played him some records, and we played guitar and talked about stuff, and he was a nice guy.
Mm. And he played on Tom Waits' Rain Dogs album. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Patrick, whose uncle is a sax player for Tom Waits, mm-hmm. which, all sounds very close-knit, doesn't it?
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something in the water.
Is it just simply that? Just something coincidental?
Yeah, it's coincidental, I think. I mean, Pat's uncle is very San Francisco guy, and my uncle was or my cousin was very New York City guy. Yeah. It's just coincidence.
Yeah. So with the solo album, 14 songs on there. Was that narrowed down from, you said you had a whole bunch of songs?
Yeah, I had a few more songs that were in the running for a while, but when it came time to sequence the record, we kind of chopped it up a little bit.
Yeah. So we talked earlier about the influence and dating back to the early blues guys. I mean, I guess, for a lot of artists your age, we talk to a lot of artists and they talk about, how they're influenced by people like Nirvana. They go way back to the 90s with their influence. How did it come to be that, you were digging, 70 years into the past?
Well, I was introduced to that music through my family. My dad played me records. He had Robert Johnson and Son House, and so I got into it then. But then, I got really obsessed with it and was digging deeper, and so I was listening to all kinds of weird blues stuff. And it's weird talking about blues. There's this, like, the stigma attached to it. It kind of morphed into something really awful, bar band kind of thing. So I always feel uncomfortable talking about it because I love it so much. And it's got such a bad name. Do you know what I mean? Maybe more in the States than here.
Maybe more in the States, yeah. But, I guess, like...
Yeah, it's weird. People think of... When they say blues, they think of bar bands,
yeah.
white dude bar bands. And it's total opposite. For me, it's like country music and bluegrass and blues music is all kind of similar. This old... beautiful music.
When I look at a list of your influences, it almost mirrors when you look at a list of influences for people like Eric Clapton, for instance. Do you get a sense of, when Clapton was writing some of his great songs, coming back from that same template of early blues, do you get a sense for how he may have, put some songs together? Well,
I can understand why he got obsessed. I mean, I was the same way, and I never listened to British blues music. I didn't like it. I didn't even really like Chicago blues music. I was kind of stuck on Memphis stuff, which is a little bit more crude and raw. Yeah, I mean, I can understand where he was coming from. Listening to Cream and John Mayall stuff now. Sure, yeah.
What about contemporary artists? Do you actually keep up with what is happening, like in the charts, for instance?
No, not in the charts. Charts are sort of meaningless to me. But I like a lot of young bands. Some great bands nowadays.
Because with Black Keys, you've been a very prolific band. Since the inception. around 2001. Quite a few albums have come out since then. What's the importance of the album compared to the performance these days? Where's the priority for the band?
Well, we love making records, and that's why we started, was because we both loved recording. So we always did that. And it's something that we're never going to let go of, but we've also turned into a band that tours a lot. And we've learned to love that also. So they're just two separate things, We like them equally.
Yeah. I guess, not listening to contemporary music yet, going into the studio and working with somebody like Danger Mouse, for instance, does he bring a sense of, like to the recording session, something that you may have missed personally because you haven't been keeping in contact with what's been happening out there?
No, I mean, I listen to new bands, and Pat listens to new bands. It's not that we don't listen to new bands, we just don't listen to the charts. I mean, when you talk about charts in the States, it's Justin Timberlake and stuff that doesn't register with me.
Yeah.
But bands like the Strange Boys and Hacienda, and there's all these bands in the States that are really, really good that will never make the charts. There's a band playing tonight, Dr. Dog, from Philadelphia, who are like one of the most amazing bands nowadays, and they make great records, but they've never been on the charts. But that aside, Danger Mouse, I think, he's just like another musician. I think when people think of producers, they think of like Phil Spector holding a gun to somebody's head, telling him to sing it right.
Yeah.
Brian is just like the exact opposite. He just loves music, and he's a nice guy. He's unpretentious. And he's had success because he's just genuinely in love with making music, and he's just got good taste, I think.
Let's talk a bit about the project that didn't happen, the Ike Turner album that you were working on.
Yeah, we started working on that. Brian, that's how we met Brian, Danger Mouse. He called us out of the blue. We'd never met him, and he said, I'm friends with Ike Turner. I want to make this Ike Turner record. I want you guys to write all the songs, play all the instruments, and so we started working on that, and we did it for like 2 months. We would write songs, send out the instrumentals, send out the vocals. Ike would listen to them, sing on top, but it was taking forever. Ike was he wasn't very confident with his voice, which was so weird because he's like, an old guy and, sort of a legend. You wouldn't think that he'd be so hesitant about singing, but he was, and it was taking a long time. And Pat and I realized we needed to make our own record because we were running out of time, and so we put it on hold. And I think Ike had only actually sang on 3 songs, so we decided we needed to make our own record, and made our record thinking we'll just get back to the Ike thing when we're done. Record our record, take a month off, and go work on the Ike thing some more and finish it. And after we were done making our record, that's when Ike passed away. So it's a real shame. It was going to be cool.
So what's the status of those 3 songs?
They're kind of just in limbo, Brian has them, and it's just sort of up to him at this point whether or not he wants to put them out.
I would imagine that would obviously be the very last thing that Ike Turner ever worked on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there is a historical significance.
Yeah. I think that he's really concerned that it's not the best that it could have been. Because Brian, he always wants everything to be as good as possible. Obviously, everybody does, but he just doesn't want to release recordings if he's not 100% positive about them, which I can understand.
What does it sound like?
It's great.
Yeah.
Sounds really good.
Maybe it should be on one of your records then. Have you ever heard one of your songs in a movie? Mm-hmm. What's that experience like, sitting in a movie theater?
It's
when
cool.
Songs comes up?
Because music in movie theater speakers sounds humongous.
Yeah.
And the songs that we saw this movie Black Snake Moan. Did you get that movie down here?
Yeah.
With Samuel L. Jackson. One of our songs was in that movie. It opens the film, and it sounded amazing. And just knowing that Pat and I recorded that in our basement, it was like the best feeling.
Yeah. What about there's a couple of other instances like with computer games. The Black Keys have been used quite a bit in computer games. Have you actually played a game with one of your songs in it?
Pat has.
Yeah.
I don't play video games that much. No. I get, you know those games, do you play video games at all?
No, I'm a non-gamer as well.
My brother plays video games a lot, and sometimes games nowadays, they're like really three-dimensional, and it tries to make it like it's your own eyes and you're walking around, you know, seeing all these things and shooting people. I get nauseous. I get like seasick. My body can't take the new video games. So.
No, fair enough.
Whatever.
You and me both. What about television commercials? There's been a few featuring Black Keys. Victoria's Secret comes to mind. Also the Sony Ericsson ad. You were sort of sitting at home watching your favourite TV show one night and up pops the ad. And
you know what? You guys have TiVo here?
Well, yes, we do actually.
I don't ever watch commercials anymore. I can't remember the last time I saw a TV commercial.
Yeah.
So, no.
Oh,
so I've never actually seen it.
It's good money. You can, getting money for an ad that people just flick by. Yeah, perfect stuff.
I don't even think, people don't even watch commercials anymore.
No. Well, it's good to catch up with you, and we will be catching up with you again in April when you get back for the solo tour. What's the course of events over the coming months once you leave Australia and get back to the United States?
I've got some recording sessions to do, and Pat and I have a couple shows. Play New York City and Detroit, Cleveland, just like a long weekend. And then it's just concentrating on the solo tour, which is going to be really cool. It's like the polar opposite of the Black Keys. There's going to be a 6-piece band, 2 drummers, 2 guitars, bass, and organs. So I gotta practice.
Yeah. Does that mean Black Keys gets put on hold for the rest of the year?
No. I'm just gonna be on tour for a few months. You know, we're gonna do America, Australia, and Europe. 3 months, I guess, is Pat and I will be separated.
I guess somewhere along that track, I'm guessing Pat's probably going to get a free ticket to one of the shows and probably be sitting front row centre.
Yeah, probably. Dressed up, in disguise, heckling.
We certainly hope so. Good to talk to you, Dan.